In today's session, I will be dealing with the classification of costs on the basis of functions. In the previous session, I have explained the classification of cost on the basis of elements. Let me now highlight how the costs are classified on the basis of functions in today's session. On the basis of functions, costs are classified as production costs. It is also known as manufacturing costs or factory costs or works costs, administration costs, and selling and distribution costs. Classification of costs on the basis of their functions. In any organization, generally there are three major functional divisions, namely production, administration, and selling and distribution. Under this method, costs are classified according to the functions, operations, or purposes for which they are incurred. According to their functions, costs can be classified into three main categories. They are production costs, it is also known as manufacturing costs, factory costs, or works costs, administration costs, and selling and distribution costs. Under this classification, besides the three major types, there can also be a few other categories of costs such as conversion costs, research costs, development costs, and pre-production costs, which will be discussed in the next session. What are production costs? They are the costs of all items involved in the production of a product or service. It includes all direct costs and all indirect costs related to production. The total of direct costs is called prime cost, that is, total of direct materials, direct labor, and direct expenses. The total of indirect costs involved in the production process is called production overhead. Production overhead is also termed as factory overhead or manufacturing overhead. In simple, they refer to all indirect expenses incurred on processes and operations which commence from the receipt of a work order till its completion. Let me quote certain examples of production costs. Salaries for staff for production planning, technical supervision, and factory administration. Expenses for stores management. Security expenses in the factory like supervisor's salary. Labor welfare expenses like employee state insurance. Dispensary and canteen expenses. Depreciation of plant and machinery, repair and maintenance of factory building and plant and machinery, factory insurance. Second type of cost on the basis of function is administration cost. Now, what exactly are administrative costs? They are expenses incurred for general management of an organization. These are in the nature of indirect costs and are also termed as office or administrative overheads. In other words, it consists of all expenses incurred in the direction, control, and administration of an undertaking. Office or administration costs are not concerned with production, selling, and distribution and research and development activities, but are concerned only with the general administration of the undertaking. A few examples of administrative overheads are salaries of administrative and accounts staff, general office expenses like rent, lighting, telephone, stationery, and postage, bank charges, legal charges, depreciation and repair of office building, office rent, managerial remuneration such as director's salary, office manager's salary, and audit fees. What are selling and distribution costs? They are those costs which are incurred after the goods are converted into a saleable condition until they are sold and delivered to the customers, and also those costs which are incurred to create and maintain the demand for the products. Selling and distribution costs may be divided into two types, namely selling costs and distribution costs. Selling costs are all expenses incurred in securing and retaining customers for the products. They are spent on creating and maintaining demand for the product. Few examples of selling overheads are remuneration and salary to sales personnel, salaries, commission and traveling expenses for sales personnel, discount to distributors, advertisement, publicity, sales promotion expenses, gifts and samples, after sales service cost, showroom expenses, exhibition expenses and demonstration expenses. What are distribution costs? They are the costs incurred in handling a product from the time it is completed in the works until it reaches the ultimate consumer. In other words, it consists of all expenditure incurred from the time the product is completed in the works until it reaches its destination. In simple, they refer to all those costs or expenses concerned with the dispatching and delivery of finished goods to the customers. Examples of distribution costs are warehouse rent, warehouse staff salaries and insurance, delivery van expenses, carriage outwards and cost of loading, transportation costs. Primary packaging cost is included in production cost, whereas secondary packaging cost is included in distribution cost. With this, I conclude this session.